Hello everyone. What are all the possible difficult or tricky situations that can occur on the interview? Well, it is tricky because you can't predict it and prepare enough for it. Then you might wonder, how am I going to handle it? One of the most important qualities of any IT professional is problem solving. You are expected to handle tricky situations and conflicts. While it might be impossible to err, there are few things we can understand, probably avoid, and in case of difficult questions, you can prepare an outline or hints of how to answer. In my opinion, I see three large categories of tricky situations: self induced, online interview problems, and the tricky questions. On each one of these, we will look at some key points in this video. Self induced. I was surprised from the data available on the internet that the candidates are themselves responsible approximately 70 to 80 percentage of the times for creating tricky situations. Of course, not the latest data and might have slight deviation, but that number is pretty alarming. So, it is in your hands to avoid a huge probability of tricky situations in interviews. You might wonder, what can be possibly created by my own? Actually, it's a pretty long list. Getting nervous, being late, inappropriate dressing, unprofessional behavior, missing documents, getting into arguments, answering arrogantly, overselling yourself, discussing personal details, discussing off work activities, irrelevant answers, answering without complete understanding, etc. 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 In this series, across various videos, we had spoken about these at least once. So I'm not getting into the details, but surely you can see each one of these scenarios was created by none other than themselves. You should take necessary steps and preparation, avoid or handle each one of those situations. I am 100% sure with proper preparation, all these can be handled efficiently. Remember, in an interview, apart from few questions, you are the one who is driving the interview on how it proceeds. Hence, if you are proper and professional, you are avoiding a huge probability of unnecessary tricky in an interview. Disclaimer: the views shared in this video are only personal opinion. The video does not intend to hurt anyone's sentiment. Some of the information are gathered from various sources on the internet which might not be 100% accurate. Hence, recommend discretion. Online interview problems. With the rapid increase in remote working, online interviews are very common nowadays. First thing, you can't say that you are not prepared for this. You must have high speed Wi Fi or LAN connection, laptop, camera, necessary apps, good sound system, good headphones, and other necessary things. Avoid connecting through your mobile data as it is risky and no guarantee that you will get uninterpreted signal all the time. If you don't have proper setup and the proper tools for an online interview, only you are to blame yourself and will fall under self-induced tricky situations category. Assuming you have everything set up, what if you run into a totally unexpected problem? Say suddenly your Wi-Fi is not working or unable to connect. Well, I'd been stressing the point of backups for such situation. Have readily available another high-speed internet connection so you can quickly switch. While switching, even if it is of seconds, try to apologize and politely inform the HR or the person who is conducting the interview about the problem you faced and ensure you will rejoin in a minute. Similarly, if you have a problem with the laptop, keep the app and meeting details ready to connect from another laptop or mobile device. Ensure you have two good pair of headphones as well. Loss of sound or breaking in voices or other sound disturbances are other common problems on online interviews. If you didn't hear the interviewer properly, don't hesitate to request the interviewer to repeat. Be polite and even okay. Start with an apology like, sorry, I couldn't hear you properly. Could you please repeat the question? The same goes when the interviewer asks you to repeat the answer. Irrespective of how many times you are asked to repeat, make sure to remain calm and composed and answer properly. Also, if unable to hear occurs more than once, just ensure your audio devices are working properly and no problem from your end. The other major tricky scenarios are mostly influenced by some form of external disturbance. Since you are at home, your family members, or friends, or relatives, or neighbors, or any others can interrupt in the middle of the interview. Such disturbance might leave a bad impression and may even result in losing the job. Ensure to avoid such circumstances by staying at an isolated place where you can avoid such circumstances. Also, avoid your mobile ringing in the middle of the interview by keeping your mobile in silent. Tricky questions. What's a tricky question in an interview differs from person to person. For some people, what they consider tricky question might be an easy one for the others. Example, as a fresher, I found why should we hire you as a tricky question. Here, I need to justify why they should hire me when there are 100 other candidates apply for the job. I should showcase my skill set matching the job description, but I shouldn't oversell myself, etc. etc. For such questions, you need to prepare outline of what you are going to answer. The first step would be analyze and understand what would be the probable tricky questions for you. To this, identify various sources on the internet for common questions, basic questions on the technology that you are strong, related questions to the common and the basic questions. Then figure out what are all the questions that you feel would be tricky for you to answer. Prepare an outline or hints that would be true to yourself on answering. You can also check out some suggestions on how to answer them and prepare your own version of the answer. I had suggested outlines or hints on answering such questions on various videos with interview tips and common questions of this series. Please check them for further details. One other set of tricky situations that might happen rarely is when the interviewer asks question on something very personal. While most of the interviewer will not ask about very personal details, unfortunately, there are very few interviewers who behave unprofessionally and ask very private and personal details. You can't possibly prepare for this, but you can politely decline to answer. I would recommend to politely decline and ask any of the question about your career or the company that you wanted to ask the interviewer. You definitely don't want any further questions on those extremely personal topics that are not professional and uncomfortable in answering. So, by asking a question about your career or job would completely steer you away from that tricky situation instead of going further into it. As you have seen so far, majority of tricky questions is on you. Once you don't make such situation hard for yourself, the probability of clearing an interview rises significantly. No matter what the tricky situation is, think quick and find a way to get out of it soon. Never ever in the interview lose your composure. Remain calm and answer with confidence. All the best. Thanks for watching this video.